This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to this podcast, Season 5, Episode 7. My name is Tim Mitchell. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kulan in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
We also have Jaime Lopez Jr. on the line in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
All right, cool. Well, we missed a week. Let's jump right into the fact check, because this is pretty much most of the fact check. Jaime, you're up first, actually, with the fact check.
It's been a while since I've listened to the episode. I think it actually made it into the episode. We were talking about Elon Musk's impending acquisition of Twitter. I had made the comment that, you never really know with this guy. It's kind of hard to tell from one day to the next. But I said there's that Delaware court that is not putting up with anybody's tomfoolery. They are very quick and efficient with these sorts of, business to business sort of cases. And it is the Delaware Court of Chancery is the court in question. So you don't want to mess around with them. You might as well just, play nice with whoever it is, because they're not going to take any time at all. You're not going to be able to stretch out the case. You're not going to be able to move the dates. It's like no fuss, no muss kind of approach to business law.
Okay, I'm lost. What's the context? What is the Delaware Court Chancery saying?
That is where the court case occurred. And unlike some other places, not picking on any one, just you don't have other places that are quite as fast and efficient when it comes to scheduling the trial date. Mr. Musk wanted to delay it a lot. Twitter wanted to have it immediately, and they did it pretty quick, a little bit closer to Twitter's timeline. He wanted to delay in trial, or not trial. It's not a criminal case. During the case itself, and they got a little bit of that, but not much. This isn't a place that you can go mess around. They are very strict when it comes to efficiently working through business law. I had a feeling it was going to happen because he wasn't going to be able to wriggle his way out of it. And guess what? He didn't. Ultimately didn't have the court technically enforcing it, but they basically enforced it, right? Because he was ready to back out or keep it going for 10 years if he had to. And that was not going to happen in the Delaware Court of Chancery. That was the name I didn't know at the time.
And as we all know from watching the news for the last couple of weeks, he's lost a lot more than $44 billion.
Is the answer his mind?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking, what was I talking to Carol about? I think Trump and Elon Musk should get together. Yeah. So I was talking about David Bradley playing the Doctor on a BBC special or show or whatever. It was called An Adventure in Space and Time, and it was a making of the Doctor Who from back in the 60s when it first started. It's a pretty good show, and he plays the Doctor, the original actor who played the Doctor, that is. And we were talking about the doomsday type scenarios that happens in Star Trek a lot, and the first one was I mentioned HAL 9000, which came out 2001, came out in 1968, but in few months earlier, actually, the Ultimate Computer by I'm not sure, Daystrom is the guy who made it, and it was called M5, and it was the one where they installed this M5 computer, saying Daystrom's theory was that, he could fly the Enterprise better than Spock and crew could. Than Kirk and crew could. And, of course, everything goes horribly wrong, and William Shatner pulls a fast one and out-logics a computer, which is completely plausible. That was season 2, episode 24. March 8th, 1968. And then The Changeling, which was the episode with Nomad, which is the satellite that returns or comes back to Earth looking for the creator, which again spun off to become V'ger in the movie. That was season 2, episode 3. Even before that one, season 2, episode 3. That was in September 27th, 1967, which was kind of interesting if you think about it, because that was, I don't know, when movies are being made and all that kind of stuff, who knows what's going on. 2001 didn't come out until May of 1968. This was a full, almost half a year ahead, I guess. Yeah, September to May. That Nomad went bananas and tried to take over the Enterprise and got out-logicked by William Shatner, James Kirk, You said it. So yeah, cool. Now, why did I put Douglas Trumbull down there? Oh, yeah. So a little fun fact about 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but when it hit the theaters, it was a flop, right? And back then, they would show a movie for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. If it was 12 weeks, it was like a really really popular film. Everybody wanted to go see it, kind of thing. There weren't that many films coming out, and like it is today, but. The movie theaters were gonna or the production company was gonna pull it because they thought, okay, it's a big flop, and the people selling tickets said, no, hang on, just let us keep it for a couple more weeks, because the Stargate, which was the scene created by Douglas Trumbull with a bunch of lights and lasers and mirrors and things, was really enjoyable if you were under certain influences, and so it was the partakers of these influencers that saved the 2001 and made it a popular film. Fun fact.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now,
can you go deeper into the substances that this might involve?
I would, at that time, it probably would have been LSD, but and marijuana, I think, right? So I think this is me, Andor. This my thing. Oh, yep. Yeah. So mm-hmm. the context. I was talking about the opening scene for Andor. It reminds me a lot of the very first couple of scenes in 2001. And so the crescent moon and sun aligned are symbols of Zoroastrianism. I can say this word sometimes, but I can't think. I'm looking at it right now and I can't even say it.
Zoroastrianism.
Zoroastrianism. Thank you. And the theme, also Sprach Zarathustra, is based on the poem by Richard Strauss, who's German, of course, and which is based on a book by Nietzsche, who's also German. He's the one who famously said that God is dead, and the connection was intentional. That God is dead. The choice of the music based on the poem by Strauss, based on the philosophy by Nietzsche about God being dead, was intentionally used by Kubrick as a sort of connection, which is, I think, it's kind of cool, because if you think about it, the whole man created Hal, and Hal took over and went bananas. So that's cool. Saul Guerrero, we were talking about him last week or 2 weeks ago, was originally introduced as a minor character in the Clone Wars, played not by Forrest Whitaker, but by Andrew Kishino. So Forrest Whitaker played him in Rogue One and then in Rebel. And Andrew Kishino has been the voice of Saw Gerrera in Bad Batch. So there you go.
Yeah, so he's playing the younger version too, right? He's playing the
Is he?
Yeah, because obviously in Clone Wars he would have been a younger man, so he's playing the younger version.
Okay, cool. So this question is for you, Jonathan. How many podcasts do you actually listen to
in a week? Episodes or different shows?
You're always pulling from like at least 3 or 4.
Oh,
Andor podcasts and things like that.
Yeah. Well, let me have a look. So I'll go by shows and not episodes first. So shows 1, 2.
Just for context for people 3, who listen 4, to podcasts 5, a lot, Jonathan works from home, 6, so he does not commute for an hour or 2 a day.
7, 8.
Well, he's counting. That does make it challenging, because I also work from home, and since I no longer commute, have to be a little bit more strict in what I actually listen to, even though I think I'm subscribed to more podcasts than when I was commuting.
Yeah.
When did I last commute?
Really? Okay.
2016, so probably early-ish. Oh.
Because we almost thought
6 years.
Podcast listening would go down because of lack of commuting, right?
It does, but then there's also times where, if I'm doing, like, some of my work is administrative, like I have to do invoicing for social media buys and stuff like that, it is repetitive task. It's not very hard for me. So I can listen to an entire podcast while I do that for an hour or an hour and a half. Like that kind of stuff. Like I maybe it's part of the nature of the work that I've done all these years, but I can use 2 parts of my brain simultaneously. So I can listen to a podcast while doing, invoicing and stuff like that. Or, frankly, with doing writing and other things too. So I listen to about 9 or 10 different podcasts each week. And of those, several of them are multiple times a week. Some of them are 2 to 3 episodes a week. So all in, I probably listen to 25, 30 podcasts a week, which is a lot, admittedly. But I mean, it's what I do. Like, you know, I'm also, as you well know, Tim, something of an insomniac too. So when I'm not sleeping, I'm consuming. So yeah, I mean, I listen, okay. And it's, it's pretty diversified too. Some of it is pop culture, some of it is sports, some of it is politics, some of it is news, some of it is health information, movies, music. I haven't gotten into the true crime yet because, I have enough problems sleeping already. But yeah.
Well, I listen to a variety of podcasts, but mostly when I'm walking my dog or raking leaves in the backyard. But and then occasionally I'll have an audiobook. Like right now, I've got an audiobook, so that's pretty much all I'll listen to until it's done. Right.
That's the thing that's changed for me most since the pandemic is I was listening to more audiobooks between the commute and just I'm doing stuff around the house. I would listen to audiobooks more. I haven't listened to more than like maybe 2 audiobooks in the last couple of years, but I've consumed just huge content amounts of podcasts.
Right. So, okay.
Yeah.
Are you listening at 1 time speed or 1.5 or
no 1? I tried listening. Some of them are okay at like 1.2. Depends what platform you're listening to. Some of the stuff I listen to is like exclusive to a certain platform. So there's different variables. But yeah, 1.2 sometimes. I find 1.5 a little hard to follow sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But
1.2.
Yeah, but it depends on the speakers and on what's happening there. But yeah, I definitely would say that I am on the high end of the user scale for podcasts as far as I know. But again, I have a lot of interests and I like to stay abreast of a lot of different things. So
what about you, Jaime? What's your habit? Like, are they similar or?
Pretty similar. Most of the listening tends to be while walking the dog or doing chores of some sort. Washing dishes.
When Paw Patrol isn't on, of course, right?
Yeah, when Paw Patrol isn't the go-to. In between, releases of that movie franchise. I also end up having varying speeds. I think the only thing I listen to at 1x speed is LeVar Burton Reads because it is a narrative. It works better as reading the story to you. But otherwise, everything is at a minimum 1.5. Sometimes 2, and if I can understand them, 3x. But it really depends on the pacing and the kind of thing.
3x? What?
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. It's great for those just the facts, ma'am, kind of shows of what's up for today. Cool. It's a 15-minute show. I can do it in 5. Right? Wow. I just need to know what's going on in wars, in economics, in general light entertainment. It's more of the quick hits sort of thing. So that one's really easy. So if I can, try to do 3x, but it is difficult because it depends on the pacing of the show. It depends on the pacing of and how understandable the person is. There are different accents that are more difficult to listen to.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that people who are visually impaired tend to listen to their audio really fast because they can consume it faster, right?
That makes sense.
They're so attuned to that sort of listening. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. If I'm watching a tech video or something and I just want to get through it, I'll throw it at 1.5, sometimes 2. Like when I was doing the Ray Wonderlick stuff, reviewing videos, I would watch the Apple videos at 2 times to sort of get the gist, But yeah, and I have a handful of shows that I go back to. Like I have one I use Overcast, so I've got a list of my top hit ones, and then occasionally I'll dip into other stuff that I find out about. So right now I just discovered a art critic, and then I'd never even heard of him before. I just stumbled across him on Facebook or Instagram or something. Oh, I know I heard him interviewed on the CBC, and so I bought his book and been listening to his book. It's pretty good. Alrighty. So I don't know if maybe somebody put this link in here to try to help my brain, but so I was thinking as I was editing the show last week that if there were only 2 Targaryens left in Game of Thrones, how is Daenerys a direct descendant of the current people we're seeing now? And what are the odds of so many generations and her being in direct line to the throne?
So you can click through if you want. It won't spoil anything that I think we're going to get into, although there is a few, you will find out who have kids and stuff like that for future seasons of House of the Dragon. But if you want the quick summary, it is that Daenerys is a direct descendant of Rhaenyra. That's the bottom line on how this breaks out. So you can trace her back to, you can trace Daenerys' family line back to Rhaenyra.
Yeah, I noticed that her brother's not in here, but I guess that's just because he's inconsequential or something, or?
Yeah, I mean, he would be next to her underneath Aerys II. He's also the son of Aerys II, the Mad King that Jaime kills in the past of Game of Thrones.
Jaime
the Kingslayer, Jaime the king's
he
the queen's brother.
He kills him before the story starts.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, that's he was basically the in the king's guard. He was supposed to be guarding the king. When Aerys thought that the forces from the north, the Baratheons and the Starks and everybody were going to come and take King's Landing, he ordered the city to be burned to the ground. And in order to prevent that from happening, Jaime kills him. So he betrays his oath to do that. He basically takes out the king and henceforth is known as the Kingslayer.
Okay.
But
because Baratheon becomes king and he's married to.
Yeah, Robert becomes the king and he marries Cersei, who is the daughter of the Lannisters. So it's basically an alliance of the Lannisters and the Baratheons to hold power.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they're the first ones post Targaryen rule. They are the ones who end the Targaryen rule in King's Landing by that conflict, which we see part of it sort of encapsulated in Game of Thrones. Anyway, yeah, if you start at the bottom of this thing and go upwards, you can sort of see all the stages that it takes to get back up to Rhaenyra and her progeny, so you can piece together who's make who. But yeah, by the time we get to Game of Thrones, the only two left are Daenerys and her brother, and they're the last surviving children of Aerys. Although, to be fair, that's not true. There are other Targaryens out there. It's just that you have to read the books because there's more than two Targaryens.
Well, I don't know. I always thought that there was just the two of them, like at this point, right? In the beginning of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they're the only ones using the Targaryen name. There are Targaryen bastards out there.
Oh yeah, well yeah, like the one from the north. Alrighty, let's move to the headlines. JPA, you're up first.
So starting with some bad news. This is a bunch of bad news in this episode, but HBO has dropped the axe on Westworld. This came out very end of last week, that they've decided that four seasons is enough and that they are not going to proceed with a fifth in what was expected to be final season. And it was a bit of a surprise move for, I think, a lot of us. I think everybody kind of thought that they had the potential. Obviously, they kind of wrapped up season 4 like it could have ended there. I think with that in mind, that the axe might fall. But I mean, it's strange, as the article here from Hollywood Reporter states. It was, it wasn't a blockbuster as far as ratings, but it was, much acclaimed. 54 Emmy nominations across 4 seasons, including a supporting actress win for Thandoi Newton. I think it's I guess hubris to think that your favorite shows are gonna survive when there's these dramatic moves. When you hear about the Batgirl movie being canceled, and you hear about all the plugs being pulled on all these things, which are major productions. I guess it's not surprising that the axe fell on this one, but at the same time, you'd think that there was enough of a built-in audience for this to do it. My only thought on this was the cast is made up of almost entirely stars, like big name Hollywood movie makers and other things. So maybe signing them for a 5th and final season was just cost prohibitive, just to have that many talented cast members. But it's a bummer. I would have liked to have seen how they intended to wrap this up.
Like I said, I'm stuck halfway through season 3. I don't know if I finished it yet, so not crushed.
Jaime, are you crushed?
I haven't actually seen season 4, so I'm a little curious if it has a hard cliffhanger ending, like how difficult of an ending is it to watch, knowing that there is no 5th season, or did it end in a kind of wrapped up, but you can see how they can continue and like really do the wrap up next time?
Yeah, I mean, probably a better conversation to have once you guys have caught up with it. But without spoiling, and I will just say there is a natural sort of ending in the way that they finished it up, but I wouldn't say it's a satisfying ending. It is an ending. You could say it's sort of completed a portion, but it's not a happy ending by any means. I wouldn't say as a fan that it's a satisfying ending. It's just an ending. And I think that's kind of what I was hoping for that fifth season, was there would be some redemption arcs, some satisfactory endings for some of these characters. And in a lot of circumstances, it's not the happiest of endings for some of these characters to close out on. So I don't know. I wonder if this will have the sort of groundswell like we've seen in the past for things like Deadwood, right? Deadwood had 3 seasons. The 3 seasons were unbelievably good television, but it never really was a gangbuster. It got canceled, and the fans just kept saying, please, 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 please come back to this, finish the story. And in the end, they did a movie on HBO to close it out. I wonder if that kind of thing might somewhere, I mean, it took like 8 years, 10 years for them to come up with the Deadwood movie. I wonder if something like that somewhere down the line would make sense. Although, actors aging, like it's hard. It's hard to guarantee that kind of stuff. I'm bummed. I wanted to see a season.
Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Warner Brothers, they have had an earnings call recently where Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav said that he would like for the company to revisit Harry Potter and work more with J.K. Rowling. So obviously there's some interesting stuff to parse from that. He basically said, Warner Brothers is going to have to focus on franchises. We haven't had a Superman movie in 13 years. We haven't done a Harry Potter movie in 15 years. Both of those numbers are wrong, but that's what he said. And, he's talking about how, Harry Potter provided a lot of profit to Warner Brothers, and, it's definitely something that they want to get back into. So what that means and where that is going is kind of the left open to interpretation part, and we can certainly participate in the speculation. There's a difference between saying the Wizarding World and Harry Potter, right? The Wizarding World, they've done the last 3, Fantastic Beasts movies were not beloved. When he says Harry Potter, does he mean Harry Potter, as in starring Harry, Ron, and Hermione? The school, something set at Hogwarts. Like, what is he talking about? And in addition to that, J.K. Rowling has, for lack of a better term, sullied her good name over the last few years, and she has definitely lost a lot of fans over her stance on trans rights, and is the idea of her being involved and going back into that world something that people will be excited about, or is it something they will be very suspicious about?
Yeah, I mean, she's famously said she's not going to write any more books. I mean, that was her whole shtick was it was going to be the 7 books, and then that's it, right?
But then she also, after that, she co-wrote the Fantastic Beasts movies, and she co-wrote the theatrical performance, the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Yeah. She was involved with that as well. So,
well, it's like you say, famous last words. Like when you.
Well, and she's not hurting for money. It's not like she would do it for money. It would have to be for the right reasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of wonder, based on what you were just saying, you kind of wonder if the woman who wrote the first book or first 3 books is the same woman who wrote, the last ones, right? So, because success and money does change your perspective on things, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I wonder if when they say, returning to Harry Potter, do they mean expanding the universe, a new class at Hogwarts set there, or do they mean involving the cast from the Harry Potter movies and books? And beyond that, do they mean, hiring Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and the famous actors who played these roles, Rupert Grint, that gets more complicated, So
I mean, I could see them redoing the movies, like going back to but I mean, they were so well visualized, it's going to be hard to do that, right?
Well, and has enough time elapsed that would be, I mean, obviously, I'm sure they could do better visually some of the stuff that they weren't able to do in the late 90s into the early 2000s when these movies started rolling out. I'm sure they could improve them, but is there an appetite for that? I mean, not only are these movies successful, but they're kind of beloved. A lot of generations of people have watched them and love these actors and characters, and so
yeah, they're still in wide circulation. I mean, they're all over the place. And what are they going to do? Like the Malfoy shoots first edition or what?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm really curious to find out what he means from his comments.
Well, it sounds like from what you're telling that his numbers and his facts and figures are distorted already. So who knows, right?
Yeah, again, that could just be I'm a busy CEO and I'm not going to give you the exact number. I'm just going to give you some ballpark figures for illustrative purposes. But at the same time, yeah, like will people follow back into the Harry Potter verse if Harry Potter the character is involved, if it's recast, if J.K. Rowling is involved, and obviously not without her controversy? I think that's a fascinating thing to keep an eye on.
I don't know. What would Elon do? That's what I want to know. All right, let's move on to the next one. It's you again.
It's me again. Yeah. So we got a couple of good trailers. One last week, one this week. So we can sort of lump these into a little trailer watch. But this last week we got Avatar 2. We got a more fulsome trailer with a little more sort of plot, a little less just pretty things flying around and more sort of plot focused. And then just today we got John Wick 4. So we've got a couple of really good looking trailers. What did you guys take away from Avatar 2 and John Wick's trailers?
Well, the Avatar 2 had more sort of like, what do you call it? Exposition on who the characters are and their kids and whatever. And, like the main character, forgetting his name now, but he's like...
Jake Sully.
Is he really a guy? Is he really one of these creatures? Like, did they make him in a jar? And like, how is he able to produce offspring? I don't understand, And then you got John Wick on the other hand, where, I thought he was done in the second movie. And then I thought he was done in the third movie, but apparently he's not done.
I'm thinking
I don't know why why does he believe, and he needs guns. But why does he believe that they're ever going to let him go? Because every time there's always some complication, like, Yeah. You're out, but your family's not out. Well, what family does he have? He had a dog, But wait, there's going to be some offspring somewhere, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if John Wick is beating up people, how does he produce offspring? I don't understand.
What about you, Jaime?
I liked both trailers. The one for Avatar seems beautiful. Obviously, I would prefer to see it in 3D. That's kind of how that series is kind of meant to be in my head. It is kind of interesting that they're setting up a sort of multi-generational thing, and that there is a different set of are they the Na'vi? Is that the name of their people?
Yep.
The different set of Na'vi who are like, hey, don't bring your stupid war over here. Like, we were totally fine over here, just chilling, not, doing a revolution or anything. We were just living in peace and harmony with the land. So that sort of, cultural contrast is kind of interesting for that plot line. And John Wick...
They're doing 4 movies, right? Aren't they doing like 3 or 4 movies?
It's a total of 5, or was it 5 new ones?
No, it's total of 5, although I didn't paste it in here, but there was a piece that appeared this week where James Cameron sort of acknowledged, he said, we could end it at 3 if we needed to. He said, for all I know, after all this time, no one's going to care. And it's funny because that's exactly what we talked about on this pod a few episodes back. But he basically said, I have in mind to do 5, but if the second one doesn't do as well as we hope, I could finish this in 3 so that I could tell a satisfying story and we don't have to do 5. I don't know. I guess I'm sure the studio has an expectation for how much money it's going to make. I'm sure there's a number, but the first one made over $2 billion globally. I don't know that, given especially, we're still muddling through a pandemic. I don't know what their expectations are for the performance of Avatar 2. Is it going to be, do they expect to break every record in the book? It seems impossible, but who knows?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is, like we said, it was sort of the pinnacle of 3D cinema amazingness, right? And it's not, I don't know if it's it's still a pretty good looking movie, but I think you and I both had the same impression when we came out. We weren't as blown away seeing it again after so many years as now that we've been spoiled with other great attempts,
Yeah, and I don't think it was bad by any means, but I think you're right. I think there's just been, we've seen so many envelopes being pushed across digital technology and everything else. I mean, I thought this movie still holds up, and there's still lots to like about it. But I mean, if I could watch the end scene of Endgame over and over and over again, it puts this to shame.
Yeah, for sure.
And John Wick, Jaime?
I'm a huge fan of the series. This seems like another interesting addition. It's actually more serialized than a James Bond, but it kind of feels like a could go on forever kind of James Bond style sort of thing, especially with Keanu Reeves being like a vampire or unending in some ways. So he might continue to do these for a long time.
Whoa. Yeah, I had the same sort of take on this. I knew they were doing a part 4. And when I saw that the trailer dropped today, I was like, oh, okay, let's check this out. And I looked at it and thought, as I started, I was very dubious. I was like, but didn't they kind of wrap the story? Let's see. And by the time I got to the end of the trailer, I was like, I would totally watch this. I would totally watch this movie.
So the question is, would you go to the theater to watch it, or would you wait till it's on some home view thing?
I've never seen a John Wick movie in the theater. And I'm sure that it's probably a great experience because they are pretty cool, well choreographed action stuff, and that's kind of fun to watch on a big screen. But I've enjoyed the 3 movies that I've watched in the comfort of my own home with, I've got a nice setup here, and I've never thought less of the movies for it. Maybe I would if I had a comparative, to having seen it in the screen, but I don't know. I mean, I like action movies just fine versus sci-fi fantasy movies, but I don't feel as compelled to go see them in the theater, which is strange, I suppose. But for some reason, I feel like sci-fi fantasy is a must-see on a big screen as much as you can, and I don't feel that way about action as much.
All right, cool. All right, so what's happening with Walmart and Netflix, Jaime?
Yeah, these next 2 stories are sort of intertwined I sense a theme here. So when it comes to how can these streaming services draw additional revenue streams, the first one up is a collaboration between Walmart and Netflix to sell Netflix-themed stuff in a Netflix hub section within the physical Walmart store. So this article from The Verge, I have that in the show notes for those of you transporting home, has a Demogorgon Light Bright. It has a Stranger Things Advent calendar. And it has a concessions kit. So there's popcorn, snacks, and other things that are supposed to help you in not only munch, but also feel like you're more of a theater kind of attitude setting, which almost feels like there must be some executive somewhere listening to this very podcast. Because if you remember, back when, the pandemic times of lockdowns and HBO, Warner Brothers movies, 2021 are all going to be in theaters, not in theaters, going to be on streaming only. I said, this is a missed opportunity to slap on some, I don't remember if it was Justice League or Wonder Woman. Can't remember the exact time of the year. I said, why don't they just slap some, some coupons and some stickers on some existing popcorn stuff and make it be like, hey, you're enjoying the theater at home. What an easy idea. And Netflix has kind of done that. So great minds think alike, or people are listening to these podcasts to get ideas for what they're doing.
I'm telling you, we got to start copywriting some of these ideas.
Exactly. The next one is apparently, I don't know, did this pass already? It's been a while. Whatever. Disney Plus subscribers got some sort of first dibs at new Marvel and Star Wars merchandise, is what the second article says. So you could buy the Mandalorian Dark Saber Legacy set. You could get the Scarlet Witch ear headband, the Captain Carter vibranium shield. Apparently, these are or were limited to being sold to Disney Plus subscribers. So again, another one of those revenue streams of beyond the streaming itself. How do you get some revenue from folks?
Yeah, that's it. They did that when DC Comics did an app a few years back. If you guys will recall, that's where Doom Patrol and Titans came from initially. they were going to create individual like custom content for there, but they were also doing custom swag where you could only get, if you subscribe to the service, you got to watch the special TV shows and you got advanced sales and exclusive material on there. And that app eventually crashed and burned, which is unfortunate. But I did think that was a kernel of a really good idea there. It's interesting that Disney basically is now picking that up and doing it with Star Wars and Marvel stuff. But yeah, I think it's a smart idea. I mean, if you've got people who are interested in those things, I assume they're doing this anyways, but they know what your viewing habits are. They can target goods to you that are appropriate to those things. They could try and, hone in on what you like and try and sell it to you. That's smart business. All right. I have a couple of sad things to announce. So, two very prominent comic book artists both passed away this week. And one of them was expected and sadly expected, and one of them wasn't. The artist Carlos Pacheco died. He was a Spanish artist, best known for his work on Avengers and X-Men, Green Lantern on the Jeff Johns famous run. He was extremely talented. He had been working in the industry for 30 years, had done a huge amount of work, covering like Fantastic Four, X-Men, Captain America, Green Lantern. Like, he touched on so many of the big characters, and he had a really, really cool art style, very dynamic, very, just exploded off the page. Really, really gifted artist. He had announced about a month ago that he was retiring from working on books because he had been diagnosed with ALS, which of course is a very, very debilitating disease. And he had, said that he was sort of out of it. To have died so quickly after that announcement is pretty devastating. And he was only 60 years old. So that is a huge loss, and definitely one that modern comic fans will feel. I would say that if you're a comic fan who's been reading in the last 25 years, you probably own some of Carlos Pacheco's work. And his work and his presence. I know, I'm obviously a little bit connected to the comic community still, and the number of people I know who are artists who either knew him or worked with him that were posting tributes this week. Everyone was saying just what an incredible talent and what a very kind person he was, and just another real blow. The other artist that died this week was Kevin O'Neill. Kevin O'Neill, maybe not as well known in the same way that Carlos was, but some of the books he worked on were iconic. He collaborated with Alan Moore to create The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which of course was made into a pretty terrible movie, but the books are exceptional. They are absolutely incredibly good books. And he did work on some mainstream stuff, but he was a British. He did a series called Martial Law, was one of the first things that I read of his that I just loved. I loved Martial Law. It was very, just in a world where comics were still very much aimed at kids and very much mainstream, bubblegum, pop culture-y stuff. He was doing really edgy, dark, violent, grim and gritty. He was on the leading edge of that, and his work was really, really interesting. Very angular, very angry, just really for its time was pushing an envelope. Very, very visionary stuff. And then carrying that forward, working right from the 80s through the 90s and then into the 2000s. And then, working on things like multiple chapters of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with Alan Moore. There are some gorgeous editions of those books that you can get and see just how incredible an artist he was. He was only 69 too. So again, just far too soon to be losing these really, really talented people. But same thing, a lot of people were just sort of really knocked on their butts this week by his passing, and lots of tributes, lots of love for him in the community. These are people who contributed a lot to the art form that elevated it to the place where it is today, where it is really mainstream and it is really popular, and we definitely owe a debt to both these men. And I just felt gut punched this week by both of these. Yeah, it's been a bad year, the last year for losing talented comics artists and creators, and this is just two really, really nasty ones for me. So I'm really sad to see them go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now I'm going to try and pull us out of that sad part. I put it in the middle so that I could try and pull us back out. So a couple quick things. So news came out last week that Henry Cavill is leaving the Witcher series on Netflix. Ostensibly, he's doing this because he is returning to be Superman in the DC EU. So they've also announced that he is going to be replaced with Liam Hemsworth from Hunger Games, brother of oh God, what's the other Hemsworth? Chris. Yes, that's right.
Chris.
Yes.
Chris. Yes.
Well, there's a third one. He was on Westworld. Anyways, they are, yes, they're not obviously ending the series because it is successful, and they're not. They can't write out the character. He's the main character. He is he's Geralt, right? The titular character. So they can't just get rid of that character if they want to continue the series. So kind of weird. I must admit, I have not watched The Witcher. Are either of you guys watching and or watched The Witcher?
First season for me. I haven't gotten around to season 2. Don't know that I've heard as much buzz around season 2 as I did with season 1. And given the maybe Cavill's leaving because the showrunners want to not do something that's in spirit or in service with the original material, makes me wonder if I will continue or not.
Yeah.
Has me doubting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of torn about it. I like Henry Cavill. I think he's really interesting, and I think he got kind of a raw deal. The Superman that he's been asked to play over the series of the Snyderverse films is certainly not the Superman that I grew up reading and enjoying. Just kind of joyless, just kind of brooding and moody and angsty, and I'm hoping now that there's this sort of new regime at DC and that they intend to bring him back and have him continue playing this character, that maybe he'll have an opportunity to play a more just joyful and hopeful and inspiring Superman. So that's I guess, as I'm not a Witcher fan, I'm not mourning this loss so much as I'm kind of curious as to what the spill out of this is as he moves back to being Superman. So
I thought he was going back to do more Enola Holmes films.
Yeah, and what was he's Mission Impossible, right? He's been in those Mission Impossible movies. Yeah, with the mustache. We got news that Marvel has scooped up a DC star to be in one of its new Disney Plus series. So Yahya Abdul-Mateen is going to be starring in the new Disney Plus Wonder Man series. Wonder Man, for comic fans, a longtime character, debuted in the 1960s as a villain in Avengers, was resurrected, almost 10 years later, brought back to life, and they sort of explained that away as he was sort of metamorphosizing. He wasn't actually dead. He was actually turning into something else. He is a character who is, essentially unhurtable, unkillable, immortal, and is basically made up of energy. But in the comic books, an interesting character that could be exploited the right way if it's told the right way, in that he is he uses his immortality and his indestructibility to become to work in Hollywood. He works as a stuntman, he works as an actor, and so there's sort of that. You could have some fun with that as a character in the comic books. Of course, like so many characters that this happens to, they are taking a character that was established as white and they're giving this role to a black actor. I, for one, couldn't care less. I think this is great. I think I've seen Yahya Abdul-Mateen. He was in the Watchmen series that was on HBO, which I wanted to hate but loved, and he was great in it, and he was absolutely incredible in it. So I'm way behind this. Absolutely excited to have him be the star of his own thing. As I said, he was working for DC. He was Black Manta in the Aquaman movie, and he will be reprising that role in the new Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom movie that's coming out. So it's kind of a strange one too, where James Gunn is moving over from Marvel to DC. Yahya is moving over from DC to Marvel. I'm sure there's going to be some of these things. Obviously, there's only a certain number of actors of caliber that you want to have star in your things. This is going to happen, but yeah, I'm excited to see this series come together. Do you guys have any feelings one way or the other about a Wonder Man series?
I am in an interesting spot where I don't remember specifics around the character that well, and yet he was kind of always sort of there in these group comics. So I definitely recognize him on sight, but I'm like, what's this dude's backstory? What exactly are his powers? Am I confusing with someone else? So I don't know. I don't know why that is for me, but that's not a diss on the character. That's just we're tapping out the heavy players, and now it's like, all right, let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes, right? And so kind of exciting to see these things come to life that never, 20 years ago never would have come to life because they weren't the big heavy hitters, Spider-Man, X-Men, Superman kind of thing. Like, and now we're like, hey, let's expand it out. And Black Panther, could that be a thing? Yeah, sure. What else we got? We got the Vision.
I know it's true. I mean, Wonder Man, that would not be a character that you would immediately think to pull out for a show, but then when you break down the fundamentals of the character, the longevity of it, the hook of the character, which is turns indestructible, decides to go work in Hollywood. Like, there's some fun stuff you could do with that. So it does make sense when you look at it abstractly. And of course, if you hire the right people to tell the right stories, get good writers, get good directors, get good actors, you can make something good out of very small ideas. If you've got Disney's budget. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. All right, a couple more quick ones. Stargirl, one of the last surviving series on the CW from the DC universe, is ending. Its third season, which is just about to start or is just started. Let's see, wrapping up its run on December 7th. So its last episode's coming December 7th. That will be the end of the series. I'm not at all surprised by this. It makes sense. We've clearly been seeing that they're clearing the decks. They want to move stuff off of CW to a certain extent so that they can move that content back into the movie theaters or do things a little differently with this new regime running the studios. So that checks out. So really what that leaves us with now is the Superman and Lois series is the last thing. Flash is about to enter its final season, and there is a series that they've slated to come next year. It's the Gotham Knights is supposed to be the next DC project. As far as I know, it is still slated to come out next year, but this being who it is, who knows? So it looks like the inevitable final death of the Arrowverse and its expanded properties is in the offing. There's a lot of speculation Superman and Lois might get the plug pulled on it at the end of the season 2. So,
well, that's no great loss in my opinion, but there you go.
Yeah, some good, some bad. I mean, all good things, right? We got a release date finally for the Last of Us TV series on HBO. We talked about the trailer for that one a few weeks back. We now know when it is coming. It is coming on January 15th on HBO Max. So that'll be Crave here in Canada, I would assume, because that's where HBO content ends up. And so, yeah, if you're keen to check this one out, January 15th is the date. And last but not least, we also got news that they have officially picked up the second season of The Sandman at Netflix. Glad to hear that one. I've really enjoyed what I've seen of that series so far. And again, while I do think that there's a missed opportunity there when they do their great big here's all the episodes walk away thing, I did enjoy what I've seen, and I do think I'd love to see where they go next. If they're following the comics faithfully, which they seem to be doing pretty well, the next arc is incredibly good comic writing. I imagine it'll be incredibly good television too. So that's exciting.
Cool. Yeah. Right. I think about the main part of the show where what happened to Vision? We didn't talk about that one, did we? But anyway, moving on.
Oh, the Vision. Yeah, no, we didn't talk about the Vision. You're right.
Too bad.
Yes, that they're going to do the Paul Bettany Vision series.
Right, cool. So we're at the main part of the show where we talk about something related to Star Trek, and we have currently the only Star Trek we have going for us right now is Prodigy. This is episode 11 and episode 12 they're going to be talking about. Episode 11 is Let Sleeping Borgs Lie, and All the World's Stage is episode 12. How many episodes are there in the season, do we know?
They did, was it 9? I guess they did 9 for the first half. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'll look it up.
Quick looking. Okay. But yeah, I think it was 9 for the first half. I don't know if it's a 9 for the second half or if there's more or less, but I assumed it was going to end somewhere before Christmas because that's typically what they do, right?
My elevator pitch for the Sleeping Borg lie is run away, but they never do. Anyway, so they should do what the Cerritos does and just like turn around and go the other way, you know?
Well, the thing is, they're supposed to be Star Trek. They don't know better, right? Even when Janeway's like, I recommend we leave, they're like, nah, it looks fine. My elevator pitch was, welcome to Borg 101. First lesson, resistance is not always futile. Because this felt like yet another installment of Starter Trek, right? This is our nickname for this show, where they're trying to sort of give you a taste of all the different things. And in this case, it was, what are the Borg? And so we got a whole, backstory about here's what the Borg are, here's how they work, here's what they do. Although they didn't really work like we have typically seen Borg in the past. In this case, like they're like, instead of just transitioning them or infecting them with their nanoprobes the second that they get their hands on them, they're like, what if the Borg suddenly started taking prisoners? Like, what? So that was weird.
Yeah. By the way, there are 20 episodes planned.
Well, there you go. So we still got a fair bit to go before they wrap up the season.
Mm-hmm. Bear in mind that might be off by one in what you're thinking, because they here on Paramount Plus, they considered the mid-season finale to be two different parts. I think for you all, it was like one I guess hour-long episode, and here it was like part 1 and then part 2. So when you said the numbers, I was like, well, it should be 12 and 13. It's like, oh, wait, that's right. It might be numbered slightly differently.
We'll have to address that for going forward, yeah.
Well, actually, I think 1 and 2, we had 1 and 2 as a full hour-long premiere, right? Didn't we, John?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think that was part 1 and part 2 here as well. So it gets a little tricky to talk about precise numbers. So I think we have about 7 episodes left.
So, yeah, I'm looking here at Crave. So Crave had Lost and Found as a 45-minute first episode, but I think that could also have been 2 parts. But they also had A Moral Star as episodes 8 and 9. So in theory, I guess what they're saying is if you divide that first episode in 2, that's the first 10 episodes. So we got 10 episodes in the first half and 10 in the second half.
On IMDb, they list episode 1 and 2 as Lost and Found, and then episode 9 and 10 are Moral Star. So Asylum would be... Okay. So we're technically... yeah.
So we're at 12 and 13 this week, not 11 and 12.
So Moral Star they've got as part 2, and then, Asylum is 11, Sleeping Borg is 12, and 13 should be All the World's a Stage. Okay, whatever.
Now we know. 7 more weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of tricky with how they package things up. For this Borg one, going with the, first entry into Star Trek for the newbies, the kiddos. Yeah. But my first Borg encounter, kind of a Fisher-Price sort of way, because it does have that. It does have some pew 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 with the Goldfinger in the Bond Sense room and Zero's coming in. I don't know the Borg sort of difference here. We have seen differences in like they take you away and assimilate you later versus sort of on the spot assimilation that we've seen. So I'm not really totally clear what's going on here. Yeah. You could sort of hand wave it as like the Borg were sleeping and they're coming out of their slumber. So they got some drowsy, sleepy eyes. They're like, I just still have had my coffee in the morning. I can't do the self probing thing. So I'm going to have to go take them over here to the workshop is how I headcanon that.
But didn't somebody upload a virus into the Borg? Like, because in Picard, 7 of 9 is working on like a Borg replication kind of thing.
Yeah, reclamation.
Reclamation. Yeah. So, but I thought in TNG or maybe it was in Voyager. Voyager, Janeway has like a whole negotiation thing going with them, right? But didn't they try to upload a virus that would break the collective at one point?
It does ring a bell, but I got to be honest, I don't remember.
Yeah. So I got the impression when this ship showed up and it was kind of dormant that it kind of had lost its connection to the collective, and it was just sort of like they were just in stasis because they were waiting to recover or whatever, right? So
yeah,
Yeah, because they don't get immediately assimilated in this one. Like that was the whole threat of the Borg in adult Trek is that, you know, as soon as you see one, you get assimilated, you know, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it says they used some gobbledygook to explain it in this episode. They said there was a neurolytic pathogen that was loosened there, and that is what disconnected them from the collective.
Well, that's what I mean.
right?
So the virus that somebody uploaded at some point, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was supposed to be that or something else, but yeah, either way, it's a MacGuffin way of saying this way all the Borg won't show up. You know, transwarp conduit doesn't open and immediately suck up the protostar, right? So speaking of Jaime's reference to needing their morning coffee before they're ready to assimilate, the Easter egg that I had was Janeway drinking tea for that exact reason, because we know that through Voyager she's a coffee drinker, right? She's a hardcore coffee drinker.
Yeah.
And in this one she's drinking tea, and they're like, "What? No coffee, Vice Admiral?" And she's like, "I'm not allowed to have coffee anymore." Which was a pretty funny gag if you're a Voyager fan.
That one was interesting. I saw some chatter online that was wondering, was that a change that they decided to go with to the character, which is kind of a natural change. They said, like, hey, the doctor says you're getting old. You shouldn't be having this. It's bad for you in the quantities you're consuming it. For the real world answer, is it because they don't want a bunch of kids drinking coffee, whereas tea is generally a lot more mild? Like, you know, oh, I want to be like Janeway. I want to drink coffee too. You know, people, you know, eat Popeye's spinach and carrots like Bugs Bunny. So I'm like, I guess that's not unreasonable. I kind of wonder what the official answer is there.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. It didn't occur to me that they were trying to. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we've talked about this obviously being Star Trek and aimed at a younger audience. I wonder if there is that level of awareness where they're like, oh, it's like putting smoking in there. You can't do that. Like, I wonder if that's the mentality. That's pretty funny.
For me, my Easter egg hunt was that during the Borg fight, Gwyn turns her weapon into what I think was a Klingon bat'leth. Like, it wasn't her own species thing. It wasn't generic blade. I'm like, that's straight up bat'leth, I think, that she's cutting him with.
Yeah, which is interesting because you wonder if that came from her imagination, or if that came like, is this a Green Lantern ring, or is this something that's pre-programmed, like make a weapon? And if it's a bat'leth, does that mean that her species have encountered the Klingons at some point? Or is it just a cool Easter egg?
Yeah, who knows?
My big question was, I thought this episode was really interesting because we saw a clearly non-human shaped Borg. We saw this big hulking alien turned into a Borg. And obviously this is the benefit of doing animation versus doing, prosthetics and makeup and everything to make these things come to life. But I thought that was very refreshing to, of course the Borg would have assimilated countless races. And if they had assimilated the protostar, they would have, had that many more added to the collective. Of course, there should have been non-stereotypical 2 arms, 2 legs, humanoid shaped Borg. I thought that was definitely a refreshing change.
Kept wondering how they're going to simulate Rock Talk and Murph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
Those are tricky ones. For my quote, did you all catch the name of either the Doctor or the ensign with real Janeway? Because I have here in my notes that they said what quote was the Doctor telling the ensign, I wish I knew how to kiss tail like that, ensign. Keep it up and we'll all be taking orders from you. Which,
yeah, I had him as Dr. Noom. Jason Alexander is Dr. Noom, right? But yeah, I caught that line, and I caught the Doctor's name, but I didn't catch the ensign's name. I think Janeway says it early in the episode, but I didn't go back.
Right, the ensign that's sort of putting things together, kind of up and coming, eager beaver kind of person.
Yeah, it's the kind of person you expect to be working with Janeway. Overall impressions of this one, it was, again, it was Borg 101, right? This was how to get kids to understand the Borg, and I think it did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
How about All the World's a Stage episode? We'll call it 13.
Well, I mean, the one thing we didn't talk about was that they find, what's the bad guy's name? The
Diviner.
Sleeping Diviner, yeah. So he's been recovering now. In this episode, they're more trying to they're treating him like, he's been taken advantage of and his ship has been stolen and his daughter kidnapped and we got to help him. They were a bit more involved, Janeway, and was Chakotay in the first one or the second one?
Chakotay was in the first one because he was a hologram, right? She was going back and revisiting his leaving.
Yeah, so they seem to be less like Janeway's crew seem to be. I mean, real Janeway, Admiral Janeway's crew seem to be less involved in these two episodes, right? So, which means that they're going to come back later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This was the one where they beamed out of the planet, right? And
the episode 13. So All the Worlds of Stage. That's the one where they discover this strange new world.
Yeah, they meet the playtime Starfleet, not Starfleet,
Starflight.
What do they call them? Starflight. Yeah, I kind of thought they were going to go with they had read had found the TV transmissions from the '60s because they were emulating William Shatner and
Sulu. They do Bones.
Sulu, right?
They do Scotty.
Did they do the Doctor? I didn't really find the Doctor really convincing. Scotty, I did.
Yeah, the Kirk one was the most like on point of like the stereotype of
even Sulu
Kirk,
wasn't bad. Yeah, the Sulu wasn't bad. I didn't think. Yeah, and Dr. Bones was Dr. Bones and Sprock.
Boons, yeah,
and
Sprock,
Cadet Hura.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the elevator pitch I had was while lamenting their ability to connect with one Starfleet, the Protostar crew discovers an entirely different one.
I went with a combined title. Mine was Star Trek: The Prime Directive and Murph Bueller's Day Off as the sort of two things that tickled my fancy at the time, as the two tracks of what's going on with Murph, kind of under the weather. That sort of leads to my big question that we'll get to in a bit. And then from the get-go, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a Prime Directive episode, isn't this? Because there's no way these people should be looking this. And this is obviously a primitive society that has been influenced unduly by the TOS era folks. Yeah.
They find the Galileo later, right?
Yeah, so that's my question. So the Easter egg obviously is in plain sight in this case, but they wrap it up with Ensign David Garovic. Did you guys remember that? I had the vaguest recollection of the name, and then I had to go to our good friends at Memory Alpha to confirm what that was from an original episode, right? So that's the character, not this part of it, but that character was an ensign on an episode of the original series.
I didn't remember the character. I remember that something happened to the Galileo. I remember that name for the shuttlecraft and something happening.
Well, the Galileo was the first shuttlecraft that they had at the episode. That was the one where Spock goes down to the planet and he's got the it's for his first command technically, right? Yeah, and that's one where they're fighting the invisible or the unseen bad guys that are throwing spears at them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you've got the Easter egg was the shirt that he wore, like it's a red shirt with a phaser.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because he was a security officer on the original ship, and so David Garovic is an ensign in one episode of the original series. He goes on this mission with Kirk, and at one point they encounter the bad guys, and he can't pull the phaser trigger, and then the thing ends up killing a couple people, and then he blames himself, but in the end it turns out that they were preventing him from pulling the trigger. And anyway, there's a whole story there from the original series. But we never really saw that character again. It was basically just like a one-off character to advance the plot, work alongside the stars of the show, and he sort of disappeared from there. Here, we're picking up his thread with, he was on a mission in the Galileo, he crash-landed on this planet, and then his story sort of takes over from there, and this is where we sort of pick him up. So it's a real deep cuts. Like, I consider myself a pretty good Trek fan, and I was like, no. Like I didn't get that, but it's a good way to tie it into the original series and have some fun with the original series stuff, and just give, again, if we understand the show to be Starter Trek, then it's a good way to sort of capture some of the whimsy of the original series and give you a sense of just that type. Like, this felt like a TOS episode, right?
Yeah. Well, even the part where when they get them to drive the Protostar, they had to make the consoles look like the TOS consoles.
Yeah.
So the Starflight.
With strong Galaxy Quest vibes for me. Of they made the ship as what they saw on the show, kind of thing. Not exactly the same, but spiritually.
That's what I mean. Like I thought they were gonna the plot was going to be that they had caught the transmissions from Earth from the TV show, right? So but they didn't go there.
So my best pew 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 was the aliens piloting the protostar to save the gang who were on the Galileo. That's timely with what you were all talking about.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. My big question, I had to put this in. I am doubling down on your puns for Murph. What's up with the metamorphosis?
That's a good one, because my big question was, is Murph metamorphizing into like a gremlin or something? Because it kind of looked like that weird sticky pod like you get in Gremlins. It's the wrong color, but it's also creepy and like, what the heck just happened to this cute creature?
I was waiting when Murph was sort of lying on its side and breathing weirdly. I thought, oh, is Murph going to have baby Murphs or something like that? Because again, obviously, it could be a genderless species that can asexually reproduce or something. You never know, right? But to have it turn out to be this sack nailed to the wall was kind of weird and interesting. And again, I was like, metamorphosis. Nope, metamorphosis. There we go. Best quote had to be "live logs improper."
Yeah, I thought they were saying "lift logs improper."
Oh, that would have been better. Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
I have the subtitles on.
No, it was. You're right. It was live logs in the subtitles. It said live logs. I went back and around and watched it again.
Yeah, there was so much fun riffing on the original series stuff. But yeah, it was a weird episode. Definitely, I don't know. Prodigy is by a measure my least favorite of the current Star Trek content, just because it is obviously it's not aimed at an adult audience. It's sort of ancillary for us. It definitely has its moments. There's certainly lots of things to like about it. I like the fact that they're bringing in the Voyager cast and some of the Delta Quadrant stuff, which is cool because I was a fan of that series. But it can be a little puerile, and I found these first 3 episodes to be a little meandering, a little bit lower audience aim than I would prefer. But I understand that they're not going for me, and that's fine.
Yeah, it is definitely a show that is meant to be cross-generational. That is, the kiddos' first Star Trek. They're new, they don't know all the lore, but it has extra lore elements for their parents who should be around the right age to have seen Voyager, which is kind of an interesting one. So it's not surprising that the content itself is presented in a more child-friendly way. What I find interesting is the extra stuff they add of like, oh yeah, like we just mentioned that Janeway is a coffee drinker. Who the heck is this Chakotay person? Like a kid might ask and be like, well, let me tell you, son, I've got this whole series of stuff we could watch. Let me tell you, daughter, that you'll learn that he ended up with some other people who had some interesting thoughts about their rights. And it is also interesting to me that the intro theme song to me is probably, in my opinion, the best one. Like it really slaps for modern Trek shows. And I don't understand why it's not a more, traditional kids one. It is like you put it over the top of any of the other new Trek shows and it probably works. Maybe not beat for beat, but I'm like, man, it like really slaps. Why isn't it more like SpongeBob or just like a toned down simplistic TOS homage or something? Like there's something there, I think, that was meant to be more of a hook for the parents to watch with the kids and not just say, oh, this is the Nickelodeon Star Trek. I think that's what they're trying to do. And I think some of the things that we're talking about here are where they're falling a little bit short of hitting the mark, but it does seem like that is the mark that they're going for.
Yeah. No, I think that's true.
All right, let's move on to Andor. We got a couple episodes to cover here. The first one is Episode 9, Nobody's Listening, and then the last one is One Way Out.
Mine is not very good for the Episode 9. That is, Bix gets interrogated while Andor plots an escape. It's kind of on the surface what happens, I guess, if you sum it all up.
Yep, absolutely. Cast and crew discover the hard way they truly have nothing left to lose. And the pacing of that, I think, was exquisite. I mean, this is an incredible television show, and we'll, I'm sure, get into this, but the way they build the drama of them sort of piecing together what's happening inside the prison and getting little snippets of information and just sort of how the paranoia mixed with, the desire for the truth mixed with, fear. It was really, really, really well done.
No, I was going to say the buildup of the relationship between Andy Serkis and Cassian Andor's character, or Cassian Andor, is that they starting off with like him eventually convincing
Kino
what's his name, Tylo, convincing him that this is a dead process and they should probably move on from it. Yeah. But yeah, it was really interesting. I like the whole concept of the prison and the way it worked, and and then he's like, because this is the second episode where we've seen him in the prison, right? And he's starting to realize that the infrastructure isn't really there. Like, remember I said when they first got on there, I was like, I thought he was going to like grab like the weapon and take out the 4 guys in the room and then escape, right? Yeah. Like it seemed to me like there weren't a lot of guards, right?
Well, because clearly they thought that there's the Imperial strategy of, well, we'll just electrify the floors and kill people if they're going to become a problem. They thought that was plenty enough so they could just staff it with minimal staff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The floor is lava is sort of the concept of their imprisonment, right? That everybody who is a guard has a huge advantage that 30, 50, 100 people at once can be taken out permanently or otherwise with just a flick of a switch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best pew 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 I had was that first scene with Dedra and Bix, because it was intense. That was as intense a scene as I think I've ever seen in anything Star Wars. That scene where she knows she's going to be tortured. Dedra knows she's going to torture her. And they just are, Dedra is just trying to scare the pants off of Bix, and it's working. And then following that up with Dr. Gorst talking about, in the most casual, lighthearted manner, what he's about to do to her, that was utterly chilling stuff. We're going to make you listen to recorded screams of children as they die until you crack. Like, whoa. Whoa, that is intense. Like, this is not yub. This is something else,
Yeah, that was my big question, which was, what must those alien death recordings sound like? Because it is pretty intense. We can tell from the reaction of Bix after she's gone through the torture.
It did make me wonder too, and I guess this is I have another big question, but this is a good follow-up to yours. So we see a different type of, droid torture that Princess Leia goes through in episode 4. It has a needle attached to it. Obviously, there's supposed to be some sort of, truth serum-y kind of component to it or whatever. When or why did they stop using this? Because it seems pretty damned effective. They use it 3 times. They use it on I can't recall the other character's name that's tortured before her. They use it on Bix. It breaks Bix. They use it on the rebel pilot they mentioned capturing later on, and it works on him. I keep thinking, like, why didn't they just always use this? We know that Leia is supposed to be strong-minded and everything, but, like, this is breaking people in half. Yeah.
Leia's obviously been trained as a royal, or even as a rebel leader. She would have gone through some training to sort of withstand this stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, and I guess the idea that we're supposed to look at it retroactively as well, she had the Force on her side, and who knows, but yeah, this seemed pretty darn effective, like for my.
Well, even the one that, I was going to say, even the one that Kylo Ren uses on Rey and Poe, yep. Right?
My big question relates to one of the subplots in this episode, which is Cyril Karn, who is now a stalker on top of all the other weird stuff that he does, where he basically tracks down Dedra outside of the ISB headquarters to thank her for promoting him. And she says, well, I had nothing to do with it. But I think the idea might be that she helped clear his name and therefore he could get a promotion. So however that plays. But my big question was, does Dedra hire Cyril, or does he go rogue and try and track down Cass on his own? Is he going to end up working at ISB, or is he going to try and do his own thing? He was talking like the Unabomber in this last episode, like,
Yeah, that's very much like I know the movie you haven't seen yet called The Joker, but very much like that, or what's the King of Comedy? What's the one where I think is that the one where he gets kidnapped by a super fan sort of thing. That I mean that if that's the personality profile of Cyril, he's never they're never gonna hive him in the what do you call it? ISB. Yeah, he's obviously not got because I'm sure they probably have to have a very high psychological profile to be selected into that.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. But and it's kind of I love her reaction to it too, like that next time I see you, you'll be dead kind of thing, because I don't put up with this stuff. Or is she just got such a strong shield? I mean, she's a really, really strong character, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw the actress being interviewed the other day. I forget what she said, but yeah, she was talking about this particular role that she's got.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great role because they pivot so beautifully between you kind of rooting against the patriarchy and sort of rooting for her to get her just due, and then you realize what you've been doing is rooting for somebody who is a monster and is not above like torturing and killing and all this stuff, and you're like, wait, no, but what? Wait, but that's what makes great villains, right? Is that sort of like, oh, I kind of see your point. Like what she's thinking is these people are trying to mess with the established government and the law enforcement and everything else. So in her mind, she's doing her job to the best of her ability, although you have to ask yourself if your job involves like murdering people and planting their bodies and stuff, that maybe you're probably on the wrong side of things. But it's interesting. It's just a really complex and interesting character. One of the better villains they've had. I thought this episode was packed with great quotes. Cassian, we're cheaper than droids and easier to replace. That's a pretty brutal summary of where they're at. Karn's mom, who again steals every scene she's in. Imagine I'd cracked under the weight of your neglect. Oh, beautifully written. Vel, in talking to Mon Mothma, we get to find out in this episode that Vel is actually related to Mon Mothma. We were wondering what her backstory was. We get that here. We've chosen a side. We're making something.
Wait, did you predict that? Or I just got to know.
I did not predict she was related to Mon Mothma. No, I knew that she was going to have a connection. I thought maybe she was Luthen's daughter or something like that. I thought that she had to have had a connection somewhere in there to be entrusted with leading that mission and everything. I thought she had to be connected somehow. I didn't predict that it was going to be Mon Mothma. So that's interesting. And then I think the winning quote from this episode was, I want what you want. I sense it. I know it. That's Cyril to Dedra. That's the creepiest thing I've heard in a long time.
Yeah. He's using the Force on her.
Oh,
exactly. Yeah,
that is like, oh, yeah. And she's like, you do realize I could have you arrested. I could have you, killed on the spot. And like, I would have gone with that impulse. That's some creepy, creepy stuff to say to somebody, let alone a woman. Like, that is creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, what another great paced episode. The way they build the tension inside the prison, they're trying to figure out, they have this, power surge. They're trying to figure out what happened, and then they start to piece it together, and they're using the hand signals and ratcheting up the tension. This show's so good at just cooking, like putting it on a simmer and just watching the water boil. It's so good at that. And, the pot boiler on this one, when it finally blows over and they realize like, oh, we're not getting out of here, are we? Like, this is where we're going to work till we die, or they're just going to transfer somewhere else to work till we die. That moment, that the look on Andy Serkis's face as Kino Loy, where he's just like, it clicks in for him. He's like, I did everything right, everything I was supposed to do, and it didn't matter. I'm still going to die here just like everybody else, is just priceless. Yeah. Priceless.
Yeah, there wasn't really like a pew 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 in this episode, so my sort of moral equivalent was the tenseness of the putting down of the old man, right? That was like really tense. The guard's like, hurry up, like I'm going to shoot you guys, or Fry, or whatever it was he was going to do. If you don't hurry it up, just be done with it. And them realizing that the doctor's got that critical information of like, nobody's getting out. That's why they had that weird event that happened that nobody knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm. The only other thing we should just circle, because we're going to circle back to it for the next episode, is the Mon Mothma plotline where she meets with her banker friend again, and they talk about the fact that they may have to take less legal routes to try and get the money that they need into circulation, and so they're basically he's going to set up a meeting with her and essentially a crime lord, right?
I haven't heard somebody be called a thug in a long time.
It's a great word.
When she says he's a thug. It wraps it all up in one sentence, right? Or one word, actually.
Yeah. You know what kind of person you're dealing with right there. Yeah.
So in the One Way Out, which that's my elevator pitch. There's only one way out.
Yeah.
In that episode, we find out why the daughter's in the story, and it turns out that this thug wants his part of his deal is to have the thug marry his son, like the daughter marry his son. Yeah. And then he'll have a strategic alliance with Mon Mothma, right? So, and she's like, I'm not even thinking about that. And he goes, as a matter of fact, you are.
Yeah, that's the first lie you've told. Yeah. No, her thread is getting, obviously, it's taking a backseat, but her performance is wonderful, and the intrigue of that part of the rebellion, the way they're layering these stories over top of each other is really interesting. Obviously, this episode, the thing that's going to be most memorable is the jailbreak. But there's so many other scenes in here that are just terrific.
Yeah, well, that's the whole purpose of this episode, is that they've after seeing the fact that after the old man dies, and they realize having that they're not going to get it. Like the thing, who's it?
The medic,
doctor tells them that. Yeah. Somebody says that they let somebody go, and then he turned up on another floor. Yeah,
he was released from level 4 and shows up on level 2 or vice versa. And basically they're like, they're never going to let us out of here. And they end up having to kill.
And that's why they kill the entire floor.
Entire floor full of people. 100 men get killed because they realize like they have to nix this. And then, of course, the information gets out.
So, and then, we find out what Cassian's been doing in the bathroom is he's been cutting the pipe to short out the floor, right? So that's part of their plan to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best PvP was the prison break that was set up by all of what they were doing there, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. The episode where they do the heist for me was the best episode so far of the season until I watched this episode. This was incredible. Mm-hmm. This was incredible. The way that they paced it, the tension. Are they? I mean, we knew that in some way Cass and Melshi were going to get out, but how it's executed, the tension in, is their plan going to work first crack? Who of their crew that, and again, they did it the right way, right? They gave us 3 episodes of slow burn to get up to it so that we actually care, who on their crew that's working on their table is going to make it out. And, is Kino going to, do the right thing? And then, they give Andy Serkis this great speech in the middle of it where he grabs the comm center microphone and basically rallies all the prisoners to work their way to the surface. It was so good. It was such good TV.
So there's only one question I have from this entire episode. Why don't they get these prison guards to put on stormtrooper outfits? Because they're the only ones that can shoot to kill.
Wasted talent just off somewhere in some ocean planet.
Random prison.
Yeah, although that being said, they were essentially fish in a barrel. Yeah, the guys were throwing things at them, but like all you got to do is just keep pulling the trigger, right? Like you just keep pulling the trigger, you're going to hit somebody somewhere or hit, make them duck for cover or whatever. They still were pretty terrible. But
but I mean, if you think about it though, like if you got, I don't know how many people were supposed to be on the floor, like 100 people on the floor or whatever, like, or I guess it was 50 or something.
I think it's
like
50.
That, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, 50 guys can. I mean, but that's the whole nature of war is the whole calculus that you send 100 people up against a bunch of guns, and not all of them are going to make it, right? I mean, that's the calculus, right? So
yeah, well,
but that's the thing.
Drown them in blood, right? You if you can't kill your enemy directly, drown them in blood. You just keep running them over, then eventually the blood will get so thick they won't be able to see the sky, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The Easter egg I thought was great was when they do the pullout, because when they were flying into the prison, they were flying in sort of parallel to it, and so you never really saw the whole big picture. You got like part of the side, but you didn't get the whole thing. When they do the pullout, when they are working their way to the surface, and you see that the prison is in the shape of the Empire logo, that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was awesome. I was like, okay, shout out to the architects at the Empire who were like, what if we made these horrible prisons where we work these people to death look just like the logo? Like, come on, that's awesome. That might be one of the most evil things done by the Empire. But yeah, that was really good. The quote of this one was the no-brainer. It's Cass's line at the beginning that sort of inspires Kino, and that Kino repeats later on. I'd rather die trying to take them down than die giving them what they want. I did like, we talked about what it is they could possibly be building there, right? Because they're building the same thing over and over and over again. Could be Death Star parts, could be, parts for AT-ATs, could be anything, right? I can't decide if I'm happy or sad, or if we're going to later on, or if it matters at all what they were building. That it's obviously, it's nothing good if it's being built in a prison camp where they work people to death.
Maybe it's a targeting system for the Death Star, because or the gun thing, because it was obviously very important, because it wasn't like they weren't like making license plates, like they were. It seemed to be a very important thing they were making, and maybe it's like the targeting system for the Death Star or something, like like the gun parts or whatever, right?
It could be anything, right? Like it could be any part of some part of the apparatus of war. I in the moment I was like, oh, so they, in the end of the episode, obviously, not everybody makes it out, but a large number of them make it up to the surface and jump into the water and try and swim for shore. And we never find out what it is that they were doing there or what the purpose of that place was. Maybe it'll circle back and we'll hear it before the end of this season or in the next season. Maybe there's a reason why, that, or maybe it's just a MacGuffin. It was just they had to make widgets because the Empire needs widgets. I'm not sure which, if I'm disappointed or if it matters at all. And it's just that they are going to make these guys make widgets until they die.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll be a plot point for the Andor series, some other series, or just an interesting background Easter egg in some future series, like the Ahsoka series or something, right? You might say those are totally look, if you just take off these little pieces, it's definitely what they were building there, right? Same shape, same number of, I don't know, is almost like an octopus foot kind of thing. If you describe it like that, it's like a foot in the shape of an octopus is what it seemed like.
Yeah. The other part of this episode that we haven't talked about is the Luthen of it, where, he gets this message passed to him by his assistant that he needs to go have this meeting. He wants a meeting, and he ends up meeting with one of the characters that we see working at the ISB, Lonnie Young, and we realize in that moment that he's a double agent, right? He's working inside of the ISB and giving information back to Luthen to work for the rebels. And that's another terrific scene. Stellan Skarsgård's performance in that is unbelievable. The speech that he delivers at the end of the episode where, the double agent basically comes up and says, hey, I, can't do this anymore. I'm giving you a whole bunch of things. Here's what I know. They're going to kill this. They're going to, kill, this rebel mission. They're setting people up. Dedra's onto this. They're looking for Axis, all this different stuff. And, Luthen basically is, saying, well, thanks, but no thanks. I can't do anything with information because I need you where you are. 50 men isn't enough to save in order to lose an asset like you inside this place, which is really grim and dark. And it's showing you a side of the rebellion that we got tastes of it in Rogue One for sure, especially Cass's portion of it. But this is a level of darkness that is pretty intense, where you realize like an entire rebel cell is about to get massacred, and Luthen is just okay with it and not happy with it, but he understands that's the price of doing business, and that's pretty dark. That's pretty crazy dark. And when confronted with this information, of course, Lonnie says to him, well, I'm sacrificing this. I'm having to hide. I'm having to put on this act every day. I'm worried about, my wife and my family. What have you done? And so then Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen gets to deliver this killer speech where he basically lays out how he's basically completely morally corrupted himself, that he's sacrificed his friendships, his integrity, that he's having to lower himself down into the muck with the Empire and use their tools to fight his war in order to try and help other people have freedom. And it's incredible. It's such an incredible speech. And a side of the rebellion that we never really talk about, that yeah, there has to be people like Luthen who are making these incredibly hard choices and doing really, really dirty work in order to keep the gears moving forward to the hopeful side of the rebellion, which we see represented by Princess Leia and Mon Mothma and all these other characters. I thought it was absolutely riveting. His performance in that speech was really, 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 really good.
It was an interesting one for him in that he sort of had the red skull with the soul stone saying, like, I lead others to a prize that I myself cannot have, roughly speaking. That he's like, I'm doing it for the betterment of the world or the galaxy, not because I'll be there to see it, but because I know it will be better. Is how he seems to live his life, obsessed with this question of how to deal with the Empire, even if he has to do things like let people go into an ambush so that the Empire doesn't figure out that they've cracked it. Not that different from like real world World War II stuff, where after the British and the Allies had cracked the Enigma machine from the Nazis, they had to let some of the missions go completely bad, even if they knew it was going to be bad, so that it wasn't obvious that they had cracked the code.
Yeah. I mean, it's the high moral cost of war. Like, you can't both be, adhering to your strict morals of goodness and light and win a war. And I think this is the first time we've really gotten into the muck of that with the idea of Star Wars. This is a war they're fighting right now. It's not an open war like we see with the Snowspeeders versus the AT-ATs or the X-Wings versus the TIE fighters. But Luthen's fighting a war right now. And he's fighting dirty because the enemy's fighting dirty. And it's awful and it's ugly. And he's making horrible decisions that are costing people their lives. But he knows this is the only way to fight at this point. It's really captivating television.
Yeah. For this episode, my big question is, how will Cass get off the planet in the next few episodes? And somewhat related, since we never actually saw his demise, I'm hoping that if not later this season, then sometime next season, there will be a somehow Kino returned sort of thing that we'll say. We know he can't swim. That doesn't mean he died. We didn't see him canonically die.
Yeah, it's a really good question you raised, though, Jaime. I mean, he gets to the precipice, obviously. He is fully invested on, like, we got to get out of here. One way out. That's the mission. And then you see all these men just being like, well, to hell with it. We're going into the water. And he's just standing there and he says, I can't swim. And Cass turns around and goes, what did you say? And then Cass gets knocked over the side by the rush of people coming out. So, because you think, well, Cass would have tried to find a way to help Kino, but he can't, right? Like, there's nothing he can do. He gets knocked right off the precipice and that's it. Are we supposed to assume that Kino either stays there and helps everybody get out, or that he just drowns himself? Like, it's an interesting, or are we supposed to assume that he finds a different way out? I think those kind of questions are really interesting in this. And will we see Kino Loy again? Was this it for his arc? Like, that's I don't know what's more satisfying.
Cool. Let's move on to our watch list then. What do you got for us, Jaime?
Mine is from Adam Savage's Tested on YouTube, where he got a chance to see one of the Star Trek The Next Generation filming models, in this case of an Ambassador class starship, which is pretty neat, seeing what that looks like as a model. And they're talking about what it takes to restore these kinds of things and get them operational, and how there's even some questions of like, oh, I wonder how they mounted this, and did they have more than one mounting point and stuff. So if you're into the model makers type stuff, this is a pretty reverential one, and it's a pretty quick, less than 10 minutes sort of one. Seems like it was up for auction, I think, is the premise of the thing. So they have the curator of that auction in the episode as well.
Did you ever see the Star Wars exhibit when it was in Seattle?
The Star Wars exhibit?
2011.
Was that the one where they had like Phantom Menace stuff too? Like Queen Amidala's dress and stuff? Because I think I saw that. I remember seeing something like that.
Yeah, they had Amidala's white dress not from the first movie, from the one with the pit, where I think the third movie, right? But they had like the this land speeder, and they had obviously C-3PO was there, but they had the Death Star, but they also had one of the battle cruisers, like huge model. It's like 7 feet long, and you could see all the little lines, which were actually just glued on with pieces of string. So it's pretty cool.
I thought the coolest thing that you took pictures of that when you were in Seattle was the snowtroopers, right? With the snowtroopers, so you realize it's just kind of made with like duct tape and baling wire. Like it's these are like official uniforms. You're like, it's just kind of stuff that you'd find in a garage, you know?
Well, yeah, the cotton work gloves you get at the hardware store to keep your hands clean when you're working in dusty or dirty environments. That's all they were. And the boots were just I used to have a pair of them. They're like just regular boots that you could buy like with steel toes in them, right? So yeah, and then Natalie Portman's the white outfit that she's wearing in the pit scene where she's she's doing the Princess Leia thing where she's like choking the big creature with the chain and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The scene where she and Dionysus, is that the planet? Geonosis.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that one there. So the outfit that she's wearing, and you see how small actually Natalie Portman is, and it's literally like, yeah, Carol could have made that costume. Like, of course, Carol probably has made that costume. But you know what I mean? It wasn't anything like, outstandingly amazing, right? Sort of thing when you see it in real life. Yeah. Cool. Anyway, sorry. Me. I'm up next. So this was a video. It's interesting, called "The 20 Things You Didn't Know About Star Wars Rogue One." It's a recent video, but it goes through. I found that it says 20 things that you didn't know, and I found at least 3 of them were interesting. One was, I think, that Peter Cushing's estate, his family had a lot of say in how he was portrayed in when they basically made him, they CGI'd him, right? The name of the planet Scarif came from the director. Gareth went to Starbucks and ordered a coffee, and they didn't hear his name properly, and they wrote Scarif on the cup, and that's how he decided to name the planet Scarif. So that some poor barista just lost out on a royalty thing there, I think, right? Yeah, so those are the 2 main things. But yeah, if you're into, and it's one of these typical ones where they talk about the different actresses that were up for the role of Rooney. Oh, and the other thing was that Galen Erso was obviously, I think everybody kind of knows this. He was based on Robert Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Who basically created the atomic bomb and then regretted it the rest of his life, sort of thing. Yeah, that's cool. And the show I'm watching now is The Peripheral. It just came out on Amazon Prime, I think. And I think I'm about 5 episodes in. It comes out on Fridays, and it stars Chloe Grace Moretz, and it's really good. It's sort of a VR game where, like, in this future world, people are all wearing the sort of the visors and playing the games and stuff like that. And her brother's in the army, and he's been retrofit with some augmentations and stuff like that. But he's got the PSTD thing, and all of his friends do too. But she's a better gamer than he is, and he has her play the hard levels for him, kind of thing, right? And he gets a job wearing this peripheral device to go into this, to basically go and beta test this peripheral. And it turns out that it transports you into another world, kind of thing, like this whole sort of mission, sort of almost a bit like Inception, right? So you sort of think you're in a dream world. So I don't want to give away too much, but it does actually draw you in pretty well, and it's well done, and sort of this like negative effects it has on you for wearing the thing for a certain period of time, and she's particularly good at it, and then of course the people who are beta testing realize it's not him, it's her that's doing it, so they actually build a device for her specifically, right? And yeah, it's really good. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes, sort of thing.
How many episodes in are there?
4 or 5, right? They come out on Friday, so I started watching. Unfortunately for me, I started watching when there was 3 of them available. So I watched them 1, 2, 3 right after the other, and then I'm like, okay, where's the rest of them, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm waiting till tomorrow for another one to drop, right? So maybe it'll drop at midnight. Who knows?
Amazon, I believe, does drop at midnight local time. So
good to know.
You might be in luck.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'll be doing after the show then.
Yeah. I got a couple things. So I had talked about this many months back in a in an episode. I was excited for this book to come out. It's the Miracle Man Omnibus from Marvel Comics. It is a collection of the first, what would have been the first 16 issues originally of the Miracle Man series in North America. It was originally released, is serialized in a different way in the UK when it was first published in the early 1980s. This is one of the earliest Alan Moore comic books. It was sort of the thing that he did that kind of helped launch his career in North America and sort of made him this, now iconic, probably the most celebrated comic book author of all time. And so the book it's got all of this beautiful art by all these incredible artists. It's got these beautiful words put together by Alan Moore. It's really an incredible package. The premise of the book is that there is a sort of everyday working man. He works as a freelance reporter. He's doing odd jobs, and he is unaware of the fact that he is secretly this super heroic Captain Marvel-esque character called Miracle Man. One day he's covering something. It goes south. There's a crime happens at the time. He rediscovers this magic word that helps him turn back into Miracle Man, and of course he does this. But as Moore does, it's so much more depth than that. So the story continues, and of course we find out that what he perceives as the truth is not necessarily the truth, and he learns more deep things about this sort of government conspiracy that's involved around his creation. And it's just a very beautifully written, thoughtful, smart, mature, and again, gloriously illustrated. There's artists in here, including Gary Leach, who we talked about, who passed away earlier this year, Alan Davis, John Totleben, just a who's who of mid-1980s and modern comics who worked on this. And the book, if it was just that, would be totally worth spending the money on. But they really kind of went to the nines on this book as well, and have put in just dozens and dozens and dozens of pages of the original script, original artwork, background, concept art. Just it's the Criterion Collection DVD of Miracle Man. Basically, it's everything you could want in this sort of one-stop place. It is a really, really great collection, and I think it's supposed to retail for like 125 Canadian, but in typical, you go online, it's more like $90 or something like that. You can find it cheaper if you go around looking for it, but it's a great read. It's really, really an important book in the history of comics, and beyond that, it's just a great book to read. So I highly, highly recommend that one if you're looking for something different, or if you're interested in grabbing a piece of early Alan Moore to sort of see where this iconic writer started. It's well worth every penny you would spend on it. So get that.
Okay.
The other one is just a TV show that I'm a big fan of. My youngest son and I sat and watched the first season of Inside Job on Netflix when it first came out. This is a series that is made by some of the people who worked on Gravity Falls, which is one of our favorite modern Disney shows. Really smart, subversive, clever, well-written, a finite series cartoon. Inside Job is definitely much more mature. It's got lots of adult humor, and it basically centers around this group that works inside the U.S. government, hiding all the conspiracies that we joke about, that you read in like the National Enquirer or something like that. They are covering up the fact that the president is a reptile, and like all these different weird conspiracy theory things. The aliens are among us, and all this stuff. It's really funny. We laughed our butts off through the first season. It's full with great voice performances from lots and lots of really talented performers. And the second season drops on the 17th of November. So I'm excited to see how much weirder and funnier and darker this series can get, because it was a real laugh. And I like that one a lot.
Cool. Mm-hmm. If it's a part 2 that's coming out of what I think is the same season, that means it probably is bingeable fairly soon. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's and of course it's Netflix, right? So it is. It's they dropped the first chunk of, I think it's 10 episodes, and they're dropping another 10 30-minute episodes. So yeah, it's all right there for you.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they do that?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News or YouTube as @JPK.
Hey, and Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you,
I'm on Twitter as @DevOfTheHair.
All right. Well, my name is Timitra, Timmitra. So that's where you'll find me on Mastodon @Timmitra, as well as on YouTube as @Timmitra. And of course, if you really have to, you can find me on Twitter at the same handle. Yeah, same handle everywhere, pretty much. So until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
A bunch of us joined Mastodon years ago when we went to. There's a guy named Jay Freeman who's he's the guy who's behind all the jailbreaking of iPhones and stuff. I think he runs a site. He used to run a site called Cydia, which was like where he was involved with it. It was where you found applications for unlocked phones. And he did a keynote talk at 360 iDev in 2017, and he was talking about Mastodon and how it was going to replace an alternative to Twitter. And so a bunch of us signed up for it, and now it's paying off.
So Mastodon, you have to create basically a server group, right?
No. Because you have the way it works is it's federated, right? You can create a server, and it's not that hard to do. But you basically become like it's like a mailing list, I guess. You create an instance, and then people can join you if they're like-minded. But I joined the Mastodon.social back in the day, and they have a finite number of accounts, I guess, or whatever that they want to let in. You can find free ones, and you can find ones where you have to apply and get accepted, kind of thing. So you can find Mastodon servers that are like if you wanted to find a comic book one, you could probably find one, or a healthcare one, you could probably find one too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's federated, so instead of like everything at Twitter, even though Twitter is actually federated too, like it has a bunch of servers across the world, and you connect the closest one to you, but they're all connected to one major Uber database kind of thing, right? And it all, the guys in California can see everything, right? Whereas if this is federated, kind of like the Bitcoin in a sense, like, this server connects to that server, connects to the other server. So if Jaime had an account, which it appears he doesn't, I would still connect to him as @DevWithTheHair at whatever server he's connected at, right? So you still connect to people by their handle, even though they may be on a different server, right? So you could sign up at JPK and you probably should hurry to do that, by the way, but or just be JPK News. No,
I tend to think of it as being like email, where since that is something that is federated as well, you could host your own email server. You could, have an account on somebody else's. But practically speaking, most people tend to have Gmail or Yahoo or like a Microsoft Mail Outlook account. So I think longer term Mastodon will probably be distributed, and that anybody can set one up, just like Tim mentions. But for all intents and purposes, there probably will be 3 to 5 major, you're on Mastodon.social, I'm on Mastodon.xyz or whatever is what I think will happen if it if it has uptake that is sustained given the anger at Twitter.
Yeah, but that said, like it seems to be that, like for instance, I work in a tech company, right? And very few people are even talking about, they're talking about Twitter and they're talking about what Elon Musk is doing and that kind of stuff, but they're not all saying, "Hey, let's all run over to Mastodon." So even when we joined in 2017, there was like a handful of people, So I mean, you can probably go back and find my posts. They go back to 2017, but there's like been 10 since I joined, right? I probably did 2 this week, and I've probably checked in on it, a third of the time that I would check into Twitter or Facebook, but it hasn't really sort of, in my mind, it's not really taken off yet. So it's a good time to get into it, like if you want to grab a good handle. But I might try running a server at some point, whatever. But having run email servers and web servers and stuff like that, it's way more work than it's worth, right?
Yeah, and it's tricky. I mean, I'm sure like every other social media manager on Earth right now, we were having discussions this week, up and down, working with my team and working with the organization, talking to other like organizations we have affiliations with, trying to figure out what are we supposed to do now that, things are starting to get pretty challenging. There was a lot of examples this week of some Wild West craziness happening already on the Twitter sphere, and it's made things very complicated for how do we do this? We've got 40,000 followers. Do we just keep feeding it, or do we close it down, or like where are you supposed to go next, right? Obviously, I don't think we're ready to pull the plug yet, but those are discussions that need to be had, right? It's about reputational integrity.
Yeah, you could also do things like there's obviously the Patreon route where you can have content that's only available to subscribers or payers, right? Or you could set up a Discord server, or like we have a Slack server, as you know, for our podcast and stuff like that, where people can join. And that way you can have private conversations and you can control who comes. The other thing about Mastodon is, unlike Twitter, is you can set up your profile in such a way that people have to be let into the group, right? They can follow you. They can't follow you unless you let them in, sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could decide that maybe that's a cautious, like in your particular organization, that may be a way to do that, is you maybe decide you want to make sure that you have a chance to vet the people that are coming in, right? So, and then you could, get the riffraff out of the way, right? I don't know if you have an issue with people on Twitter as it is, right? But
yeah, I mean, it's not bad. We certainly do get, occasionally there will be people who take, we do report health data on a lot of potentially contentious stuff. We don't necessarily go into the vaccine of it all, but we talk about, some complex health topics that, certainly can attract, a response from both sides of of this political spectrum. And so, there was a great piece on, I think it was Barstool Sports or someplace today, where they were illustrating all of the hijacked accredited accounts for like LeBron James, for Peter Schefter, because now if anybody has $8, you can be the verified owner of a name, right? So,
well, did you not hear the thing that happened last weekend? Sarah Silverman changed her name to Elon Musk, and
I thought it was Kathy Griffin.
Yeah, Kathy Griffin did. A bunch of people did. Like a bunch of people did.
And they were advocating vote for the Democrats, which of course he's really not. He's a pretty hardcore Republican. So.
So the thing is, like, a couple of weeks ago, he had said that comedy is now legal on Twitter, and then of course all these comedians did this to him, and then he kicked them off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, because he said you have to clearly mark on your line that your account is a parody account, and so if you don't mark it as a parody, then people could be taking it seriously. And but the thing is, he's also adding the blue verified check mark to anybody who has $8 in their pocket, and that just has led to, like a Wild West where people are, somebody posted earlier this week a post from @LeBron James that was basically like, I'm leaving the Lakers, peace out, it's been a nice trip or whatever. And people were flipping out and retweeting it and everything else because, of course, it looked vaguely official. It's, the potential for malfeasance on here now is very high.
it's not a walk in the park to get a blue check mark. You really have to be a legit person. Like, I've applied a few times and they kind of went, yeah, right. Who are you? And then, if you look online, if you Google my name comes up like all over, like a couple of pages with the Google stuff, because I've been prolific with writing and blogging and stuff. Right. But, I don't know what it is that like journalists who are like doing this professionally, they generally get blue check mark right away, right, kind of thing, right? But yeah, it's hard to say like what. But now he's kind of like he's ruined it by saying, yeah, give me $8 and I'll make you a blue check mark. In fact, a friend of mine did that today. Like, he showed up today with his blue check mark, right? And those, like, I'm sure Jaime's not going to pay it. I'm not going to pay it.
Yeah,
That's
we have no intention of paying it. Yeah, I mean, we have a white check mark. I don't know what the difference is, but we had to go through a lot of hoops just to get the white check mark, which says it is verified because it's notable and government, news, entertainment, or another designated category.
Yeah, notable government, news, entertainment, or other designated category. So, yeah, but how much can I pay? $12 to get a white one? Also, Jimmy Fallon's got a white one now.
For now, there was the gray check mark, and then for like official, not, I just paid money official, and then it's like it rolled back, and by the time this episode goes out, there might be, I don't know, a dodecahedron or something.
Green check marks?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's the point of having the white one? If like all the people that had blue ones are now white.
It's almost as if your product strategy should not be based on what I had in the burrito last night as a mantra, right? That, like, sitting and thinking about it for more than, burping it out is a problem for the new owner. So
what is the point? What's the point of having a blue check mark? Like, why did you have to make it blue? Why couldn't he choose like a different color? What an idiot.
The best part is how he wants to turn it into a banking and payments service, which, makes sense. Yeah. But, like, do you want this person doing that? I have my doubts.
Please take my money.
The best quote I saw all week was that, Elon Musk thinks he's, that we're all stuck in here with him, but what he doesn't realize is he's stuck in here with us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I mean, when you have your, keys to the kingdom and you can flush people down the toilet, it creates a pretty bad environment to be in. It's very destabilizing.
But he's supposed to be about free speech and all that stuff. That's why he bought it, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I was more initially fearful that what was going to happen was that the loonies were going to start, leaping in the windows, and we were going to have a lot more, hate speech. And I'm sure that's coming, but I was worried we were going to have a lot more hate speech that we'd have to sort of filter out and that kind of stuff. I haven't seen that yet. What seems to be happening is that people who have self-respecting common sense are like, peace out, I don't want to do this anymore. And so what might be in the end is just it's a parlor. Like, I don't know what this is going to be.
So I went to my friend's site just to follow up on that, and I think it's white because we're in dark mode. It's blue. Yeah. Okay. Because I went to his account, and it does say he's verified because he's subscribed to Twitter Blue is what it says. Whereas yours says, like you said, it's a government thing or whatever. Yeah, so it's just a variation on whether it's dark mode. Like, and again, like Twitter, like you can't figure out dark mode and make the check marks remain blue, or lighter blue or something. Like, that's bad CSS, man.
Yeah, there's now a fake Twitter for Nintendo verified. There's a lot of good ones in here. The LeBron one was the peak yesterday. There was one that said the Yankees had signed this like pitcher for 3 years and $60 million. Again, that one made a bunch of rounds. Like, it
was a fake story.
Yep, somebody created a quote unquote parody account and got it verified. They spent the $8, and wow. Yeah. So I mean, the really tricky part is that, I came from a world where Twitter was the fastest place to break news. That's how we were using Twitter as journalists. Is it's immediate. You can get a big audience really fast, especially if you have a lot of followers, in a world where you don't know whether @TorontoStar is @TorontoStar, or if @TorontoStar is a parody account. You're in deep problems, because it all comes back to integrity, right? It comes back to the integrity of the name that you're putting behind these things. obviously for a person like LeBron James, he's a brand as well as a human being. There's problems with messing with his brand. But when you're talking about, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Globe and Mail, big publications that have a reputation for, being factual and accurate and timely and everything else, if people start messing with those things, it can really damage those brands.
So one of the guys I follow on Twitter has got his handle as, it says his name is Morton, right? But he spells MOR10, like the number 10. But his name is Morton. What do you call it? He's from Denmark or something. But he's got his Twitter name as Morton10 at mastodon.social. Guess what I'm going to do?
Yeah, a friend of mine, very smart journalist, friend of mine who is at _chameleon as a journalist. TikTok is too young, Facebook is too old, Mastodon is too hard, Instagram isn't funny. Do we just stay here on Twitter and wait for the denouement of this dispiriting drama?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm just looking through my feed quickly here, and there's obviously I follow a bunch of my journalistic friends, acquaintances, and colleagues, and one of them again comment is, so do we just have to move our follow lists to Mastodon? How do we do that? Like it's, I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge that I am kind of scared about is, you spend a lot of time nurturing, as a business, we've spent a lot of time nurturing an audience, growing an audience on these platforms. When this started percolating, and it wasn't just this week we started talking about it, it was as soon as this came up as a possibility, the sale was, did we just spend all this time and money to watch it just get washed away like sand on a beach?
Mm-hmm.
That's mildly agonizing.
I guess the question is too that now that you've mentioned this is like, so do I have to register at Tim Mitra at all the different Mastodon servers out there?
Well, in theory, it could be impossible because some of the Mastodons are closed, aren't they? Like you can create like closed loop networks. So how could you?
Yeah. No. I think the thing is that I think that my handle is my handle on Mastodon, right?
Like across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go to Mastodon and you search for my name at Tim Mitra, you'll find me right there, right? So, but the reason I know about the lock thing is one of my friends is on Mastodon, and I went to look for her, and when I found her name, and it's just funny because she corrected the spelling of her name on Mastodon, but it's incorrectly spelled on Twitter because I guess she couldn't get the name or whatever. But when I went to follow her, she had to let me in. So she gets to choose who follows her.
Yeah, which, I mean, obviously there's a lot of value to that, but then that works well on a person-to-person basis. Does that work if you're, government agency, corporate entity, public figure, politician, like it just becomes unwieldy.
Yeah, well, I got 35 followers so far. I'm following 25, so.
Do you know what their user base is off the top of your head?
No idea. No. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's articles on it. I posted a couple of articles on
this last week or so.
I posted a couple of articles on Twitter and on Facebook on everything you ever want to know about Mastodon, sort of thing, right? It's not that hard. It's not that hard to use. It's just there are some things you can do on Mastodon that aren't straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Like you can verify your own self by putting a link on your website, which I think is brilliant.
What which server did you say you're on? You're on social?
I'm on mastodon.social.
Yeah,
you can probably try and sign up.
I'm just taking a look at I had downloaded the app earlier this week, but I really hadn't had time to get into it. It was a bit of a busy week. And
well, and that's the other thing too, is there's several apps right now that are vying for the Metatext is another one that people are saying.
Yeah, I was looking at Metatext as well, yeah.
But I was on something else initially, and then I moved over to the somebody just told me about the Mastodon app directly, and so I don't know if he's a developer or knows the developers, but I've been on it since then, and it looks like Twitter. It's like very similar.
Yeah, it's funny because there's certainly a lot of stuff on here, and you're like having a tough time sorting through it all, right? Like they've got these sort of general buckets that you can register for them. There's like literally not one server related to health or health information or anything that would apply. Where do you fall? Is it there isn't one subfolder or server for even government or yeah, weird.
So why can't I find Mastodon.social?
Yeah, I was just taking a look for that one,
account.
and I don't see it. Oh, here we go. Mastodon.social, the original server operated by the Mastodon G.
What's the URL?
I'm just
HTTPS or something, or
I'm looking in the app. So registration closed. Server disallow registration is what the message that I'm getting across for Mastodon.social.
It's probably because we were all early adopters, right? So
so it won't let you in there. So I guess I'll have to find a different path. But I just
joined. So more than just code, I just joined on another. Let me just see what I went on that one. How I joined on that one. I wasn't sure if I'm supposed to bring over like MTJC, and so I'm on universedon.com. So it's like Universe Odon.
Oh yeah, I see that one. So some of these are already growing. Like that's got 11,000 people involved in it. Some of these ones, like Mas.to, is 100,000 people on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. Is again, if these are all subdivided, if it's not one giant community like theoretically Twitter is how do you do this? It's Mastodon JP has got 235,000, maintained by Sujitech. Yeah, so that's the thing is how do you reach the maximum number of people with information you want to disseminate if it's all subdivided like this? That's the real question. Like how will this as a platform evolve to meet that kind of need?
Yeah.
And how fast? I mean,
well, here's something you'll appreciate, Jaime. I posted yesterday. What's in your refrigerator? You remember that one?
No, I don't.
From Periscope. When Periscope first started up, everybody wanted to know what was in your refrigerator. That was one of the memes.
I used Periscope back in the day. I didn't realize I missed out on that meme, apparently, for that part of the culture.
We talked about it on the podcast when I first talked about it. I think it was my pick on the show, right?
The refrigerator meme specifically, because I don't.
What's in your refrigerator? People were on Periscope in the early days. People were posting. Oh wait, I'm watching this Peppa Pig thing you posted. Yep, Mastodon.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be an interesting path. Again, I am discouraged, as I say. It's been. Yeah, I mean, does it matter at that point where you register that? Like,
no, like I said, I've got on my account. I've got a list of a whole bunch of frequently asked questions. The unofficial guide to Mastodon, how to use the new social media, 10 quick tips, futuristic guide to Mastodon. Yeah,
the Times posted a big article about it this week, saying here's the what you need to know about it, basically running you through. But it was again complex. It was not straightforward at all because it's just a different. Like on one hand, it's a superior platform in the way that it's created. It's not. It's open source.
I don't know. I don't know if I would call it superior. I think it's growing. It's going to change obviously over the next little while. But like on the weekend, it was super slow because there were so many people setting up accounts. Right?
Oh, I'm sure. And that's the thing is obviously people are disgruntled and they're frustrated and everything else, and they're looking for an alternative, and they all want to do it at once. That's not how this is going to work, right? Like it's going to take some time for the marketplace to sort itself out. But one thing's for sure is that the value of Twitter has certainly changed from the moment that they paid for, this. He's already gone in and changed it so much. He must have lost this market valuation. Must have gone down already.
Yeah. Like I said, it's cost him more than 44 million. That's what I said at the top of the show, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I got to call it a day. I think I got to go catch up on my peripheral watching, right? My peripheral viewing.
Yeah. Quite possibly. Again, I discovered that after we would finish signing off, I could go and watch Lord of the Rings on Thursday nights.
Oh, really?
Turning into Friday mornings. But we're not going to need to worry about that until sometime in 2024. Who knows?
Yeah. Alrighty then.
All right, boys. Good to talk to you.
Till next time.
Next week.
Ciao.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.
Later.
Bye.